Definitely going to bring down the tone of this podcast because this is fucking outrageous what we're about to see. Anthony Fauci faces congressional committee over COVID emails.
What is the next thing that's going to be created? Because it's just another way of printing money.
There's not much coverage happening on this, which to me is just fucking criminal in itself from the media.
Just it's horrific.
And you just think about the magnitude, the effect of what happened here. Millions of people died. Millions of kids lost education for those years. The trillions of debt that was printed.
It was the highest level of control.
This is a crime against all of humanity. It's like on the highest degree. Like, it doesn't get much worse than this. Episode 7 of the Ground Up podcast.
In the White House.
In the White House.
Tuning in from the White House.
Ground up sound. Ooh, yeah. Real estate deals. We lay them down. Let's get those deals. Deals. Deals making money, baby.
Welcome back. Episode 7 of the Ground Up podcast. Nearly at 2 months now. Lovely, lovely. Thank you for everyone who is tuning in. So we are, if you don't know who we are 4 property developers and business owners in and around the UK and Wales. And we talk shit on this podcast about property, our struggles, all kinds of topics and bits and bobs going on in the world, stuff that directly affects our businesses and potentially your business. Hopefully you find some useful information from this podcast. And if you do, drop us a comment below for any questions you want us to ask in future episodes. We release the episodes every Thursday at 5:30 a.m. And in this podcast today, we're going to be talking about house prices and the trajectory for 2024. We're going to be talking about a breaking story on Anthony Fauci to do with the pandemic. And then we're going to be answering some more audience questions that we got from last week. So thank you, everyone who sent your questions in. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. Nice. Actually, do you know what? Before we do, Jack, we went to the HMO Awards, didn't we? It's a nice little photo of us.
We did.
And the place is mad, isn't it? It's Stowe House. This place here, it's like a mad school and this old manor that's used for the HMO Awards, where Jack did win an award as well. Here he is going on stage with Ben.
And
what was
Congratulations.
Yeah, congrats, mate. What was the award? I can't remember what it was. The social housing one, wasn't it?
Yeah, Best Progressive Social Housing Investor of the Year.
Beautiful, mate.
Yeah, it was super pleased to get it. I actually didn't expect that we would win it. One of the other finalists, shout out to Sam Patel, won I think 6 or 7 awards in another property investor. You know, it was Stu. You know, it was at the property investor.
Yeah, that
award.
guy won 4. Yeah, he won
winning.
4.
He was a finalist in my.
He's
category,
a machine, isn't he?
And he hadn't won an award that night. And I was like, okay, no, we're not going to take this home. This boy his mantelpiece has fallen off the wall. He's got so many stuff on his. But anyway, yeah, super pleased to pick it up. It's actually a bit of a, a bit of a different story to normally awards. And normally awards is celebrating, complete highs and blue skies and all the good stuff. But it's been a very, very challenging business, and business is challenging. But this business has been the most challenging out of our group, out of the 5 businesses that we run. So it's nice to have one little high off the back of shitloads of lows. But yeah, good to be recognised. Yeah, Jack,
do you remember what I did notice? What I took away from the award ceremony. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of awards that kind of go on throughout the day, and it's a great thing to go to be honest. The HMO Awards. If you're into HMO, it's all HMO people that are there, and they run a great event. But there was an award given at the end to that girl and that guy. I don't know who they are. But Jack, you probably know who they are. That lobbied for the law change for the council tax bans per room for HMOs, and they won.
Yeah, so I actually met them. I think it's Wendy and David, I think. But a huge shout out to them. Basically, we went to the HMO Awards is put on by Coho, which is a property management software, which we actually talked about in I think episode 5. And I went to it was called the Manor Mind, which was like a couple of days out of the office. They rented a big manor and we just talked about HMOs. It sounds probably like anyone that's not in property's worst nightmare. A load of people gathering, talking about houses, multiple occupancy. But what was really relevant and prevalent is the government, local councils were starting to ban HMOs and be very subjective around the terminology of what classifies as a single dwelling or a unit. So, for an example, if you're renting a one-bed flat, your council tax might be something like £1,600 per year, which is obviously fair relative to that property. When a landlord like us develop a 6-bedroom HMO, the house council tax is probably £2,200 per year, but the councils were banding it per lettable bedroom because there was a lot of unknown around what was actually classified as a self-contained unit. Some people were saying it has to have a kitchen. Some people were saying it has to have a lockable door. Some were saying it's got to have an ensuite. So there was huge ambiguity across the UK. The government or the councils and the government, led by the government, thought that they would be hacking away at the landlord and basically screwing the landlord over, because our council tax would go from one council tax lot for a whole house to 6 across 6 studios. But in reality, we write in our contracts that if banding goes to single banding, it's then pushed onto the tenant. So the person that actually feels a hit is the tenant. So it's a complete, ridiculous rule of trying to generate more revenue. We've talked about it on episodes before.
It's just a money grab.
What's the phrase? Jab, jab, hook. It feels like they're always the way with the tax that we have in this country. But these two guys took it upon themselves to fight. And one of the main reasons that the chap was fighting is because he has a portfolio in Portsmouth and he was getting absolutely hammered with. He went from paying like 16 council taxes to like 70 in a month. And it's completely killed his portfolio and his revenue. He managed to write it out and obviously fight the case, and with support with everyone and signing petitions and actually attending Parliament and blah, 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 blah. And it actually got overturned. So by lead of them making headway in, this HMO Awards is probably the biggest gathering of HMO owners in the UK. I would say 450 people there. I can't really unless there's maybe a Simon Zucci event that's similar or property investor show in the Excel.
Yeah,
but it's good, and it's good to know that your voice gets heard, and that does actually have weight if you get people behind you.
Do you know if they got a rebate back for the council taxes they were paying on the rooms? Whoever that chap was in Portsmouth.
Yeah, I don't know, but do you want to know what is really fucked up? Is the council did rebate the charge. So since the day it became an HMO, they charged him council tax from the date it was converted to an HMO.
Wow, that's
So that was a really big killer.
yeah. So they backdated the individual banding from when it first became HMO.
I would have thought they probably did because there wasn't any case law on that.
Yeah, well, if it's anything like business rates, if you get charged and it gets overturned with an appeal or restructure, etc., it backdates the entire thing until when that was effective. So if they overturned that rule, then all that backdating should reverse back to its standard, individual council tax ban. But then again, I don't know, but I suppose you can find out quite easily.
But it's cool. It's cool that they've done it. I thought it was. I wanted to give them a standing ovation. I was like, do you know what? You've saved how many people millions and millions and millions of pounds across the country from money grabbing councils. So it's cool, and it shows what can happen when there is a community of people coming together for HMO. So
yeah,
very cool.
Hugely rated, and actually now we're going to be so there was a hugely. I mean, this is really relevant for anyone out there that wants to be in HMOs, is already in HMOs. We have strategically built a lot of our portfolio with off-suite bathrooms, which is a bathroom where there's not a bathroom directly attached to the bedroom. And we haven't put any kitchen units in any of our bedrooms because we knew that if this law did come in, it would completely swallow a lot of our revenue and profit margin. So we wanted to offset that by having some properties that were maybe 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, but one of the bathrooms is actually off a corridor. So it's actually only 2 units in it. So that would still cash flow. So we were de-risking our portfolio as we were growing it.
Yeah.
Now we're going to be putting in tea making facility, kitchenettes, en-suites in every room. It's changed how bullish we are because there's now case law to put our strategy in. So there's no reason now we didn't we haven't got a single kitchenette, tea making facilities, kitchen in any of our bedrooms, and we know that's an extra 60 quid a month in revenue. We're now going to be banging those in our properties. So huge overturn and hugely relevant. I've got a fun fact for Stowe School if you do want to hear about it. So it's obviously a very prestigious private school in the UK, probably in the top 5, along with Eton, Harrow, Millfield. But it's on average about 50k per year in school fees. And if the Labour government bring in their new taxing for private school fees, which is 20% taxing, that will then obviously make that school fee about 60k, which is a heck of a lot, given that it's, I think, ages 11 to 18. So basically, anyone sending their kids to that school is easily £500,000.
Did you guys watch the debate? Did you guys watch the debate on ITV on Tuesday?
No, go on.
You didn't watch it, no? Oh, it's just between Sunak and what's his face? No, I just thought it was pretty good. I think Sunak wiped the floor with him, to be honest. I mean, he was just holding him accountable for every question. They're always sighing and not agreeing to what they're going to actually spend the money on or where they're going to get the budget from. And I think Richie's done a pretty good job. I'm so torn between who I'm going to vote for this year. I mean, it's a complete mess as it is. But that was just a good debate. Definitely worth watching the highlights, I reckon, on YouTube.
Yeah, I'll give that a go, mate. To be honest, I didn't even know it was going on. That's like the modern world now, isn't it? Your algorithms of social media sort of dictate your world. Yeah, you don't even hear shit.
I'm sure Ranjan Bhattacharya has done a talkover video on that. But if you head over to my YouTube channel,
that was a well good impression. What the fuck? That was well good. Oh wait, Dorian's back. We've dropped Dorian out. Here he is.
Yeah, I could hear you all still, but my screen crashed, so I thought whilst you was talking,
Did you hear we had Ranjan on the channel just for a second?
No, I missed that. What happened? No.
He's gone now. He was in and out. All right, let's get into the episode, guys. We'll get into the first topic. First topic is Stu brought this one to the.
Who's the guy in the middle?
Oh, there's Kano.
Candy Cane.
Yeah, what a
That's Kane. He's my construction director. He's an absolute chap.
He loves a pout. He loves a pout, doesn't he?
He does love a pout. Yeah, if you know Kane, he loves a pout. But yes, so I mean, crystal ball gazing here, aren't we? Really, but we're getting into house prices, and this has just been released from Savills. So a revised mainstream house price forecast for 2024-2028. So falls in the cost of debt and an improving economic outlook have created more capacity for house price growth. Going to get into some reading now. So key takeaways. The UK housing market has performed more strongly than many anticipated so far this year, with average values increasing by 1.1%. The outlook for 2024 has improved since our last November forecasts, primarily thanks to falls in the cost of mortgage debt. We now expect UK house prices to rise by 2.5% this year. However, the market remains sensitive to short-term fluctuations in the cost of debt and political uncertainty to the run-up to the general election. Improving economic performance combined with steady cuts to the base rate will open up more capacity for growth from 2025. At the beginning of November last, we forecast that prices would fall by an average of -3% in 2024 and that housing transactions would remain around 1 million for the year. At the time, a 75% loan-to-value mortgage from Nationwide on a 2-year fix cost 5.34%. Mortgage approvals were down below 50,000 per month, which is one of the reliable indicators for house price movements. Supply and demand. The reading for the new buyer inquiries in the RICS Housing Market Survey was still in negative territory, with a net balance of 23% of respondents saying they were still falling in October. Yet the UK average price rose by a net figure of 1.1% in the first 3 months of the year, according to Nationwide, rising in 2 months and falling in 1. That brought annual price growth to 1.6% at the end of March. Sorry, guys, a little bit more here. So furthermore, monthly mortgage approvals in February rose above 60,000 for the first time since September 2022. And this recovery is primarily has primarily been underpinned by an easing of mortgage rates. A highly competitive mortgage market meant lenders have fairly aggressively priced in the prospect of cuts in the bank base rates. As a result, while the bank base rate remains at 5.25%, the cost of the same 2-year fixed rate from Nationwide Mortgage now stands at 4.84%, while a 5-year fixed carries an interest rate of 4.5%. So not only are fixed rate mortgages cost lower than we anticipated at this stage, but they have also been much less volatile. And this, combined with a slightly improved outlook for economic growth, has given buyers more confidence. And then there's a nice little graph here showing these predictions for 2024 throughout to 2028, where you've got average UK house price growth, UK residential transactions, year-end bank base rate, nominal wage growth, and real GDP growth. And all of these numbers here are guesses. They still are guesses because no one can know what the market's going to do, especially not a property market with so much nuance that can affect prices. Not to mention, there might be another war next year. There might be another pandemic. So it's all, this is very speculative, but it is certainly different to the outlook at the back end of last year. So what's your guys' thoughts, starting with D?
So that's interesting to see that. That table with the base rate as well. One of the banks we're working with, Lloyd's, that provided us with their kind of market update, where they're saying they can't see, or they're not expecting rates, base rate to fall below 3% for the foreseeable. When I mean foreseeable, that's for the next 5 years. So it's we'll obviously that table there had it going down to back down to 2%. So it'd be interesting to see. Obviously, no one's got a crystal ball, but it's all we know at the moment is that the last information I had was that it's expected that rates will be holding or slightly coming down, but even towards the end of the year, there's a 50-50 chance from what I've been given that it'll still be at 5% and not lower than 5%, basically. But that's this year.
We're anticipating the same, yeah. What about you, Stu?
Well, I think this sort of all points to the debasement of currency and the more printing. I mean, you've got Savills, who are generally quite a conservative arm, where they, normally the housing market outperforms what they suggest. But you've got Canada, who've just reduced their interest rates by 25%. I think the ECB's today, and normally it's like a domino effect. Once Canada does it, the US will do it. We've got obviously the elections coming up, so I just think that I think interest rates are going to come down. I think we're probably going to get 25 basis points this summer. I think everyone's going to feel very excited and drunk on money, and as they print more cash because they're going to need to. House prices, inevitably, any asset that goes up over time, as soon as they print. I mean, the Nasdaq's at an all-time high. Bitcoin's breaking out, gold's broken out. All these things are pointing to assets are ready to go sky high, and that literally leads to one thing, which is printing more money, which is good for some who hold assets and bad for others. And who knows? But I think that's pretty realistic. But 25 or 26% over 5 years? I mean, that just shows you how much money they're potentially going to be having to print to pay for previous debts that they need to pay interest on. So yeah, it's quite a scary time, and we're going to go through this very volatile period. So buy and hold if you're in property, and just hang on for dear life, really.
And stack sats.
And stack sats, indeed.
Well, I think just before we go to Jack, based on what you've just said there, Stu, they should definitely have another little row here that says, how much are they going to print relative to the supply, and that will also be a good indicator to what's going to really happen here.
Well,
but
I'm guessing 21% would be my guess.
Yeah, something like that.
That's effectively what I would think. A fifth of the total monetary system that's in our economic environment will be effectively 21% to pay for previous debt. So that's generally how it will work. It's just an indicator. And as you and I know, Rye, Bitcoin is a fantastic indicator to show what's going to happen. And when it spikes, it's because they're hiding inflation. They're hiding a quantitative easing in so many ways now by paying for old debts and old student fees. And they hide it in so many ways to get money into society without everyone knowing. But obviously, hard assets, property is obviously one of the hardest assets that will just go with the amount of money that's out in circulation. So the more money there is, the more money it costs to buy stuff. And it has good and bad. Well, it's bad. It's Keynesian economics. And they believed many years ago that being in debt and everyone owing each other money. The problem is the debt that's out there is consumed debt, which is bad debt and not pegged to assets. And that's the people who are in debt get more and more in debt, and that's when you get people who default on their payments, and I think the banks are all insolvent, which is what I was listening to this week as well. And that's quite scary because they're going to have to print a shitload of money. And as soon as people lose faith in the dollar, which is inevitably going to happen, because when people learn more and more about this, and they realise that the money that's being created is fake, it's basically made up money. It's just noughts on a computer system, noughts and ones, that we all have this intrinsic value and belief that it's worth something, and when people start realizing it's not, it will go all of a sudden. And that's where the Bitcoiners of the world and the hodlers will believe that someone's going to have to turn to somewhere, and that's where the world will change. So hodl, learn about Bitcoin
baby,
over and out. Absolutely.
Jack, you buying any Bitcoin?
Dorian, I think this is just a takeover. How often is this going to happen?
Well, yeah.
I'll talk a little bit more about the
Bitcoin.
not financial markets economics, but probably the UK real estate economics, which is probably, we've touched on a few points. So to help out there, I actually was with Mark, one of the directors of Oak North Bank. They released about £2 billion in property development and property lending space. So sort of tallying up also with the Savills report and where the market's going. It seems quite subtly positive, but I'm not fucking seeing it. I don't know if any of you are selling at the moment, but nothing is fucking selling. The issue we have is if let's just forget interest rates, chipping down or Labour coming in. The issue with interest rates is if they're going up, people will wait. If they're going down, people will wait. If they're staying consistent and there's confidence they're staying consistent, people will move because they know that the market, they'll go, I want to move in with my new partner. Let's move into a house, and they'll budget their figures on the current interest rates. So for me, I just find that there's such a lack of confidence. There's a lot of waiting. And even my dad said the other day, well, let's wait to see what Labour does. And it just pissed me off because I fucking hate the word wait. We're not going to here to build a business on waiting. If you're building a fishing career, maybe, but that's not the business I'm in. You can't wait. So I like movement. I think confidence in the market creates movement. I don't really care whether it's at 5% or 3%. If it just sticks somewhere, the market will move better than it is currently is. I agree with the rates that we've been talking about. I think it is probably going to start slowly dipping down to like 4 over the next year or two and stay around there. And that's going to be the new normal. And I hope the resi sales market does, improve because it keeps the businesses moving, the SMEs moving, the services going, the estate agents going. It helps the economy, move. And that's one thing that stamp duty incentives do as well. It promotes people to think, it's not a huge cost to move. So let's give it a go and see how we get on. You've got a sale, new family moving on, bit of liquidity back in the market and movement. But I'm seeing it so stagnant at the moment personally. And I'm not in a secondary or tertiary area to be living in. We're talking about prime areas that I develop in, and it is sticky. I've got a cottage in Henley for sale, and there's like 3 segments of the market in Henley. You've got sort of sub 600k houses, which is pretty much just cottages, 1, 2, 3 beds. You've got 600 to 1 million, which is like the family 3, 4, 5 beds, and then you've got 1 million plus, where you do have quite a lot of housing. So that's where the market split. At this moment in time, there's 51 cottages on the market, and I've got a cottage to sell. There's fucking nowhere near ever 51 people looking to buy a 1 or 2 bed cottage in Henley. It's quite a small town, so it's just. I just think, and that's the lower end of the market. It's just super sticky. Even Mark at Oak North said, he was like, oh, we're seeing sales come through on our redemption of our loans. I'm like, I can't see it happening. We've got a few different sites on the market. It is slow, way slower than normal. And whether I'm just seeing a grey patch, I don't know. So be interested to hear what the followers and listeners say, if they're selling any stock at the moment. But I'd love to see some change, just more activity, really.
But I think 25 basis drops. I think 25 basis points will start that momentum going because people are waiting for that top to be confirmed. And I think just 1 quarter drop will get everything moving again. I think that in the loft side anyway.
Yeah, but then will they wait because it's coming down again?
Because then you got banks and lenders wanting to become competitive again, so they all want to be at the top of the table. Everyone's lending and bot because they've got all this money still, but they're nervous about obviously losing cash. As soon as there is a quarter point, then they will get a bit more of a better projection, and I think that will just motivate a lot of people to get moving because a lot of people are waiting, but children don't stop getting smaller. They need more space, and if they need to move or renovate or whatever they need to do, the money will start spinning again, especially if they start printing more money, which I think is inevitable. That should get things moving.
Let's look at it in terms of real terms of what I'm getting at and why I think people will wait. Let's say the average house in the UK is about 300k. Let's say the average mortgage is 85% on a personal homes asset. That percent between 5 and 4% that we're looking for base rate to be is £212 per month per household, which to someone earning, probably 1,800, 2,000 take home, it's 10 to 20% of their salary shared, depending on whether they're with a partner. So it is a lot of money to those people. So every quarter basis points it's dropping down. It's 50 quid a month that they're then saving by waiting. So
yeah, but then the house prices are going up in relevant terms. So they're having to borrow more at a lower rate. So I think that's the momentum swing. Is as soon as it stops dropping, people want to spend money, and if they increase the capital, house prices are going to start moving, and people are going to want to jump on early on this next wave. So I just think that everyone's waiting.
Still, I completely agree with what you're saying, but I think the average buyer isn't aware of that dynamic. That as capital values go up, they're going to pay the same kind of real term interest rate because they're just going to pay a lower amount, but on a higher loan. If that makes sense.
Well, we don't know how they're going to feed it extra and how they're going to print the money and what they're going to hide it in. But the idea of printing money is that everyone feels good. Anything with inflation, it's like you're drunk. You're high on this money coming through, and it will come into different areas, which we don't know until they release it. It's only when you look back and go, "Oh, that's how they got this money into the system." But the idea is that everyone should start feeling better. There's a new government coming in, new starts, and it's just the next 4-year money cycle, which happens every 4 years. So yeah, let's just wait and see. But the idea is that everyone should feel better. Everyone, salaries need to increase, and I don't know how they're going to do that, but there'll be some sort of government incentive or some grant.
I've already seen salaries increasing,
and they'll go for government salaries first. They've already got their gold-plated pensions and inflation-linked salaries. Like that's the problem. Because they're unproductive in terms of of economic health. The more they up public sector salaries, the more burden there is on the private sector, and eventually it just comes full circle, and we raise taxes or have to print more money. It's just a unhealthy balance that will never work. I mean, Dorian, do you find any issues with forward funding in a volatile interest rate market? Is it similar to house buyers?
Yeah, apologies, gents. I was a bit quiet on that session then, only because as you was talking about stuff that we can't control and is just frustrating. A pre-app came in, so I wanted to read the response of that pre-app.
Is it good news?
So, yeah, it was. And the
Nice.
reason why I had to do that right now, and I wasn't trying to be rude, is that basically we're in a conditional contract for this site that we've forward sold on, and we have to trigger it to go unconditional, and the deadline is today, and we're looking to complete on it next Friday. And the pre-app was meant to come in yesterday. It's landed this morning, so I just read it just to make sure that there was nothing major in there that I don't think we could overcome. But no, after reading it, obviously pre-app is just that. It's not binding, but looks like they're very supportive of the scheme. Will work with us on it. So we should, we've got enough comfort to just trigger it unconditional today. So yeah,
Congrats. How many units, D?
37. That is
Lovely.
Beautiful.
37 mixed houses and apartment scheme for social rent. So yeah, to answer your question though, Ryan, it works a little bit different with if rates go up, of course it will always impact forward funding or any type of funding deal because hypothetically, but every different funder or client purchase or whatever has a different cost of capital. For example, some of our housing associations we work with, they refinanced a few years back with a longer term fixed rate, so it impacts them less than others that are on a variable rate. So it does depend, but yeah, in a short answer, it definitely does have an impact. Anyone looking to buy a project is expecting a better yield, but from a social point of view, there is still in my opinion, there is still a bit of there's a lot of social washing around, i.e., that there's funds out there that say they're social impact, so they want to invest in social things, but they still want to do it at quite a good return on their investment. So there's a lot of social investment that can happen, but the returns aren't very, they're not excellent or good returns really. So you can have the biggest social impact, but ultimately, unless it's going to generate a satisfactory return, which is still quite a decent return, you can't attract the investment for it unless it's more on the philanthropy side or government funding. And that's what happens in the social sector. So it's propped up quite a bit with grant. There's a lot of in England more so than in Wales. There's private companies involved looking to try to make how they can make their profit margin whilst being in the social and affordable sector. And there's different ways they do that. But to answer your question directly, Ron, yes, it does have an impact.
Does have an impact. Well, look, anyone listens to this as well, if you've got any thoughts on what might happen. I mean, we're crystal ball gazing always with this stuff, especially with the global elections coming up. I think there's going to be uncertainty. There's going to be some sort of carnage that happens, especially with the way American politics is right now. I mean, ours isn't great, but in America, they just, it's carnage back and forth. You have a far left, far right, and they're all swaying different policies. They've got their open border policy, millions of migrants coming in. There's so much going on that I think there's going to be drastic government measures, either for huge amounts of spending, and that's going to spook markets, or raising taxes. And there's going to be stuff that comes in that will affect all the predictions made by Savills. But for now, it looks like a relatively steady market. I mean, we're definitely seeing a bit more consistency with what we're buying.
We're seeing people. One problem we've got now, which has happened very recently, is because of the elections, there's more sitting on the hands at the moment as well. It's not just about interest rates a second, it's also about the impending elections. So, I am expecting, well, we're only a month away. So
yeah,
at the moment, we can't get any real decisions on upcoming deals a second. We just kind of have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah. But yeah, that's house prices. And now we're going to get onto something more controversial and not necessarily related to property in any way, but this has got to be something that we have to touch on, because it's for humanity's benefit. We should be talking about this, and I appreciate that this is quite new news, and maybe not all of us have had a look at this, but I'll do a high level. And I'm going to caveat this as well with anyone listening at home. Go and do your own research on this. Go and have a look. I'd suggest going to Twitter or X, and you can go and see some of the journalists. And
Congress.
In America, it's different. It's different. Their politics, their terminologies are different. But you can essentially see the officials do
in the White House.
In the White House.
Tuning in from the White House.
You'd make a good American, Jack. You would. You were like on.
You should hear us Ranjan. You should hear us Ranjan, mate.
Apparently, Americans say when I do an American accent, I sound like a stadium announcer. Brought to you by Geico.
Fucking hell. But yeah, I'm going to definitely going to bring down the tone of this podcast, because this is fucking outrageous what we're about to see, because of just the impact that it's had. But yeah, go to Twitter, go to X, and go do the research yourself if you really want to see. But this is verified information now. So let's have a look. Anthony Fauci faces congressional committee over COVID emails. Anthony Fauci, who led the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases early in the COVID pandemic, is facing a congressional committee about questionable emails from agency officials. So, former National Institute of Health official Anthony Fauci has faced many hostile questions from members of Congress. But when he appears before a House panel on Monday, he'll have something new to answer for: a trove of incendiary emails written by one of his closest advisors. In the emails, David Morans, a career federal scientist now on administrative leave, described deleting messages and using a personal email account to evade disclosure of correspondence under the Freedom of Information Act. And this is what he said: "I learned from our FOIA lady," so that's the Freedom of Information, here, "how to make emails disappear after I am FOIA'd, but before the search starts, so I think we'll all be safe. Morins wrote in a Feb 24, 2021 email. Plus, I deleted most of those earlier emails after sending them to Gmail. The pressure is on as Fauci himself prepares to appear June 3rd before a House subcommittee exploring the origins of COVID-19. The NIH, a $49 billion agency that is the foremost source of funding in the world for biomedical research, finds itself under unusual bipartisan scrutiny. The subcommittee has demanded more outside oversight of NIH and its 50,000 grants, and raised the idea of term limits for officials like Fauci, who led the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, an NIH component from 1984 to 2022. And to give you an idea of the sentiment on Twitter, so what we've just seen there is mainstream press, very PC, very, this is what's happening, this is this. And there's not much coverage happening on this, which to me is just fucking criminal in itself from the media. But if you go on and you go see the independent journalism that's happening in this space, this is the sentiment. The fall of Fauci. COVID-19 is officially exposed as a US government project, a virus engineered by US scientists using a biolab in China for cover. The biggest crime against humanity, killed more victims than the Nazi Holocaust against the Jews. Demand justice. Fauci should be prosecuted. Now, anyone who doesn't know who Fauci is, so Fauci basically led the charge. He was who the government looked to in America, which then inevitably led the world, to as an expert, as a doctor, an expert in the space of virology. They look to him for guidance on how do we deal with the pandemic. But now what we understand is that Fauci was the one who tried to force the funding through for what's called gain of function research. Now, gain of function research is where they're taking these animal viruses and deliberately trying to make them human compatible to test how dangerous they would be should there be an outbreak. I mean, that in itself is just fucking stupid. Why invent something that doesn't exist? Invent something deadly and increase its transferability between humans to test it, and then do it in Wuhan, in a central population area, in a lab that had level 2 security, which isn't deemed the right level of security for gain of function research, let alone gain of function research was banned in the Obama administration. But because Fauci is a career bureaucrat and has been in there for many decades, he just forced it through under another administration. And then there's this lab leak of this of COVID-19. And when that happened, everyone turns to Fauci. Fauci's the one that funded it. He knows it's a lab leak, but yet tries to cover it up. And all of these emails in the FOIA request, which is, so if you're a public official, then and you're a public citizen and you want to find out information about a public official, you go through the right channels and you submit what's called a FOIA request, which is the information or the emails, the communication of that public official. And what Fauci and his consultant had done is hidden emails deep in their emails by using words and changing out letters for symbols like dollar signs and asterisks and things like that, so that it was harder to find in searches. And they tried to bury these emails, and then openly admitted that he was deleting the emails because they were talking about how they know that this COVID virus has come from a lab. Yet everything at the start of the pandemic was, oh no, it was in the animal markets in Wuhan. That's where it came from. And then they went and discredited however many thousands of doctors. And then you had this mass attack from central media, obviously working in tandem with government, to suppress any independent doctors who came out and went, well, hang on, this isn't something that could be naturally occurring because of XYZ. And Fauci was at the top of it. And now it's come out in these emails years later that the guy's a fucking con man. Like, and you just think about the magnitude, the effect of what happened here. Millions of people died. Millions of kids lost education for those years. The trillions of debt that was printed, like the consequences of these criminal politicians and the bureaucrats in government, unelected. These aren't elected officials. These are people that are just in there for decades and can force whatever they want through. They think they're gods. And then look at the consequences of what's happened. And now that this FOIA request has come out, and people have seen that Fauci and his comrades were trying to hide the initial truths of the origins of the pandemic. You got the media and other, and I hate to say left wing, but it is a lot of Democrats who are trying to protect Fauci, going, he shouldn't be prosecuted. It's this, it's that, it's this. It's like, hang on, this guy should definitely be prosecuted. This is a crime against all of humanity, and it's like on the highest degree. Like, it doesn't get much worse than this, and it just sets a precedent for, why can these bureaucrats have so much power? How can we have one central point of failure with such high level of magnitude, like the pandemic, where it affected everyone, every country, every human being, locked down, all these oppressive measures that came in because of one central point of failure. So yeah, this is mega stuff, and it should be something the world is talking about, because there needs to be a change in government. We can't have people this powerful and this influential when it can affect all of our lives in such a drastic way. But anyway, that's the story. Definitely worth going to look at and following what happens. Will Fauci get prosecuted? If he doesn't, I think it's just a complete and utter failure of what should be a democratic process. But what do you guys think initially?
Well, I mean, it doesn't really surprise me, to be honest with you. I think this human nature and history is littered with the same things. You have very powerful people in positions that have information. They all have agendas, and they decide how that information comes down. But it's all on different things. I just did a very quick research while she was talking, and from a US perspective, Hillary Clinton and her email a facade that happened on her own private servers. Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner and Donald Trump as well, personal emails with highly classified stuff that's we don't even know, that could actually be even more damaging than COVID, like wars, etc. Michael Flynn, former national security advisor dealing with Russian. Scott Pruitt, administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency. Various New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. All of them have basically done similar things in terms of emails and deleting things and not really being honest and transparent. But all of them had investigations, and none of them have been sentenced. None of them, it's Hillary Clinton had no sentencing from an FBI investigation. Michael Flynn did get sentenced, but then got pardoned. So that was the end of that. And I mean, it's just I don't condone it, but like, I'm not surprised. That's what my answer is, really. That's what happens when you have these people, in surrounded by other people who've got away with it. So if they all have the same contacts, why would it be any different for them?
What about you, Stu?
Yeah, I think when it all started, we all hoped that it was going to come from this animal to human transition, and it was a natural thing. And the more you look at it, and I just think it's it's horrific. And I've heard people say like they can see how the Holocaust would have happened as well. I mean, by everyone. Did you all get the jabs, guys? I think it was like 9 in 12 people all got the jabs, and we were all compliant.
I got 2 out of 3. Yeah.
2 out of 3. Yeah.
Yeah, I got the first one.
First one. Yeah. Jack.
I actually was pretty against it, but there was a point during COVID where my wife was in America and I was here, and I wasn't able to get into the States without being a jab. And I thought to myself, I actually looked at the stats. I ride a motorbike. I'm more likely to die on a motorbike than anything else. So I've got to get rid of that before I start worrying about getting jabs. But motorbike stands on, but I've got 2 jabs.
But that was exactly me, Jack. Like, the only reason I got it, because we were going to Switzerland, and you were just forced into having to get this jab if you wanted any freedom.
If you wanted any freedom, you had to have it done. I mean, they had us all against a barrier, and I think
which was
go on, Jack.
An eye opener itself. Control.
Yeah, exactly. It's all power control, and it's just from a central point down. I mean, the governments are so large and so big. If there was a conspiracy, then it's absolutely disgusting. And if I knew now what I knew, I would never have got the jab.
Yeah.
Sorry. If you look back to then, if you think about it, because we are all ingrained in the system, so to speak. But yeah, the governments, when they want to, they shut down the roads. So you had stop checks to see where you were going. You had to be basically banned to leave your house. You couldn't be with other people that you weren't related to, etc., etc. You couldn't visit people that were in care that you were related to. They could just they just had the power, just writing it through, just to stop all of that. And it was definitely eye-opening.
It's the highest level of control. I was going to say the last thing was that 2 meter distance was made up. I think Fauci's announced that now, that was literally made up. Like, he was representing scientists, and yet all those kids that had to stay at home and had to wear masks and were uncomfortable, and it was all through a hot summer, and all that was all made up. I mean, a virus is going to spread whether you're 2 meters apart. And then to look back now and look even like, to last week, and you've got people in concerts and halls, and we're back to normality, and yet all that time was wasted. And that, it was a good 2.5 years of people's lives really that was affected. So yeah, I really hoped it was a natural,
And trillions
printed, which is really what I think that if you look at, money talks, and what was the motivation, and I think it is unfortunately the money system. They had all this debt to pay from the '08, which was when the reset happened. They print a load of money, which at the time was 18 billion, and now we're printing trillions. Now we're at 34 trillion debt, which if you look at we need to bring some graphs up. If you look at these graphs, and it's just absolutely skyrocketing now, and there is no way for this to be dampened and to be softened. It is going to end, unfortunately, on a tailway. And what is the next thing that's going to be created? Because it's just another way of printing money.
I think there's two interesting things to think of now that this has come out. And I think especially in the UK, a lot of people were just like, well, it's bollocks, isn't it? This is all bollocks. But they're giving us furlough, they're giving us SCISS grants. Fuck it.
Yeah, that's the drunk bit. That's the drunk of printing money.
Those like, we'll give you money. Yeah, lock yourself down. We'll take your
Which is worth
freedom,
fuck all.
but we'll give you some money. Yeah, it's fucking ludicrous. But if you think about it, these people, just going back to these people in power, these people like Fauci, and career politicians and bureaucratic power-hungry elites, we deliberately, as a people, try to move away from this culture back when we dethroned kings and queens and created parliament for a democratic voted electorate process. There was almost a revolution to create this system where this couldn't happen. And now we have a system that's worse than kings and queens, because you can't even hold accountable those in power, because you can't even see them. They're hidden in these 3-letter acronym institutions surrounding government, unelected. They're there for decades, and they do things like Fauci, where they lobby for billions to be invested in gain-of-function research, which was strongly advised against by top scientists who said, why create a virus that's deliberately deadly for testing it? If you just don't create it in the first place, then it won't exist and it won't escape like it did. So that's ludicrous. The other bad thing that I think's happened now this has come out, who's going to trust the next virus? Who's going to trust the next pandemic? And there can be, it is not physically impossible to have a deathly pathogen that could kill everyone. And especially now with technology and where it's going, it's not good. It probably is going to happen at some point. There will be a deadly bioweapon, which is what COVID is. It is a bioweapon that was created by US government with China, in China, which is are they meant to be enemies?
Or planted.
Or planted.
Or planted in China, because, can you imagine the Chinese and the Americans working together on this? I don't know.
It's mental. But the worrying thing is, if there is an outbreak that is deadly, and there are deadly viruses, think of smallpox, how many people that's killed, or the Black Death, the Black Plague, but people won't believe them. And then we probably would need to lock down, but everyone would go, fuck off, you fucking criminals. And then we all die. So it's just, there's so much fallout that comes from this. It is just, it's something that the whole world needs to wake up to, because we have to fix this system. We cannot have that. There should be term lengths on bureaucrats. They shouldn't be able to be in there beyond 10 years. We should be cycling them out.
Yeah, I mean, so like from our perspective, and the vast majority of people listening to this, are you making any changes in your business on the back of what's happening, or are you, realistically bringing it all the way back down to our level? What changes are you making off the back of this information?
I mean, coincidentally, we were in a boardroom session yesterday, and there's one of our funding partners who runs a financial brokerage. He was always on about getting their email and getting the client's email and going do through the website and then getting their email. And I was like, but people might instruct you on Instagram. And his view was, I want to get all that IP onto my email database because I don't trust that I'll always have access to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. And I think that's, the right way to thinking about your business and de-risking losing IP. There's Instagram accounts that just get locked. Celebrity Instagram accounts just get locked, and they have a second Instagram account to sort of cover that. So I don't feel like we're fully in control. And we always think about risks with financial markets, selling properties, letting properties, the government, the tax. But there is wider things to be thinking about, for sure.
And there's also the money. You get locked out your money. I literally had an email come through from Tide of about 30 different transactions they wanted me to explain and show evidence because we just completed on a property and we had 800 grand come into the bank and 400 grand went out and all the rest of it. And it was like, we need to answer these questions. Like in the middle of like a 10-hour, 12-hour day, I ain't got time for this. And I wrote back, said, I ain't got time for this at the moment. And then boom, locked out my money. All my direct debit stopped. All the money, I couldn't get onto the bank to see how much money was in there. I had direct debit letters coming through saying, have you cancelled your direct debit? All because I gave them a one-liner, said, I haven't got time for this, as in right now. I mean, they've got total control, all the banks, and it's all because of the FCA and the regulation, which all feeds up to the top, which is why,
the bureaucrats.
it's just insane.
I've noticed KYC and AML has gotten so much. So KYC is know your customer, which lawyers have to do for acquisitions, and AML is anti-money laundering. It's 10x since I've been in property. Like the more you've got to show path of money and truth money and all that sort of nonsense.
Just to play devil's advocate though on that, and the reason why is because like there's always two sides to a story, right? And then that's there's probably two sides and then the truth. But so like our side is I get your frustration with that, Stuart and Jack, and I've experienced the same too. But from a bank's point of view, and I'm definitely not sticking up for banks here, but something I learned recently is that at the moment, whatever there's some regulation or something's happening where if banks basically are connected with all the other banks, and they have this master information sharing system behind the scenes that none of us can see and have access to. So what the issue is going on at the moment is banks should know what is classed as high risk or potential fraudulent activity, and if they don't stop it, not only does the money go out of the bank and go into fraudulent hands, even when most of these probably are not fraudulent, but the person, so yourself, Stuart, would be able to claim off the bank as saying that you should have known this because you've got information I don't have. You should have stopped it. So because they've got that obligation on them now, they have to see anything that flags up on their end that, hang on, this could be an issue here. They have to come down on you. Otherwise, they'll have to, not only does the bank money leave, they'll also have to refund you for not doing what is classed as their obligation for preventing fraud.
No, I get that, D. And with our credit cards as well, like we get a text within 15, 20 minutes of something that's either gone through or pending to go saying, was this you? Press 1 or 2 or whatever. And yes, and you move on with life. And this was 2 weeks after the event. So this is going back now going, we just need to do some DD on, your SIT code. And when you set up a company, you're obviously allocating what you're doing and what you're doing it for. Whether they need to do more SIT codes that gives you a bit more movement, because putting hundreds of £1,000s in and out of our banks is what we do, right? If we're property developers, and to be pulled up on this stuff, this is the first real time it's happened where I've never been cut off immediately, just because I was in the middle of a stressful day and I just didn't need 30 transactions to send evidence and invoices and emails all through a text message where there's I'm on the premium account now, so I've got a direct telephone number, but it's just one of those things that for them to have the power to cut you off immediately. And this was income. This was people paying rents, texting going, we can't pay. It's not going through. It's like, that's how quick they can turn you off.
They can.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be putting these banks on a pedestal or any institutions or any government. Like there are human beings like all of us four, and they're making decisions, and they have so much fucking power now, and they're hidden behind
over our lives.
Yeah. And these are people making decisions. It's exactly why we should scrutinize it. And just back to your point, Dorian, on what can we do differently about our businesses now that we know what Fauci's done and shit like that. I think the biggest thing we can do is just talk about it. It's just we should be talking about these systemic problems with our government, because ultimately it's only getting worse. What kind of future do we step into where there's these people with so much power, unelected as well? It's not a democracy if they're unelected.
Yeah.
And Fauci is the proof that we don't live in a democracy. So talking about it as people, that is our power. We are the government, really. The private sector that pays taxes, that votes for the elected to be in power. This is how it should be. We are the power, and talking is our strength.
I can see it getting worse personally.
Yeah.
I think it's going to get worse, especially with emerging technology and AI itself. I think biotesting it will increase, and we can't control these things. Otherwise, if they could control it, they would have controlled COVID, obviously, but they can't control it. So, but they're still going to be testing them, because that's what humans do. Again, there's all the medicine advancement we've got today is because of people testing, and along the way, there's also been a lot of bad things that have gone wrong, and that will continue, in my opinion. But also, what will continue because of emerging technology is things like digital fraud, and that means communication with banks and stringent requirements. I think that relationship is going to get a lot worse as well. So, but hopefully it catches up. I just did a quick check online, and last year the impact from financial fraud, which is pretty much all going through banks, was £1.2 billion in the UK alone, and it's expected to rise by over 29%. So that means that that is a huge issue.
Yeah, but on proportion to the global transactions, on UK transactions, that's probably like 0.1% of all transactions that are done online. But for the headache it creates.
I think all of us here, if any of us even lost 5,000, because I'm just playing devil's advocate. I think for just going forward, I think as business people, we need to realize that there's going to be a lot more scrutiny in any transaction we do. The more it goes through digital channels, when there is fraud going on, and
Some of the biggest frauds are in collusion with government officials and bankers. That the biggest frauds are the USA HSBC scandal with the drug cartel. Can't remember the name of them, but I've actually done a like a journalistic piece on this. It's in a script I've done, and it was something like 800 million of drug money was laundered through USA HSBC and by the top bankers colluding with government officials, and that as a proportionately, if you look at the percentage compared to say a local
80%.
crime lord, that's where the crime is. It is at the bank level, but then they're using it to then create oppressive measures on the retail consumers and the public. And I think it's all just so broken. It's why Bitcoin's a great narrative, because it's sovereign. You can get away from that shit. Take your money, take your economic power, and put it somewhere where they can't touch it. But then they are bringing in FCA scrutiny and AML checks. We have to do AML checks as a business. And I know already that they're making it almost impossible for people with crypto funds to diversify into real estate assets.
I think it's quite frustrating for like all aspects of business, isn't it? I was in the Senate of the Welsh Parliament yesterday giving evidence on social housing delivery and the planning system. And there are some like rules and regulations set in place that are very, just add time, add complexity, and in my opinion, are not fit for purpose. And the question is, why? But that would have been wrote into legislation by someone at some time and kind of never reviewed since. So I think, again, because business is quite complex, everything we do in our companies, there is some form of governing regulation or body or law that is going to call. It's dictated by somebody at the top all the time, and if they change over, I don't see how we're ever going to get away from the problem. I think what we need to
Revolution.
do is focus on how can we make our businesses more robust as best as we can, and always think about, like what Jack said there, even things like Instagram. We're all growing our Instagram channels, but what happens if it just gets closed one day or hacked one day? Is the business robust enough that our income or whatever doesn't just come from Instagram, or our investor leads just comes from Instagram? I think the message is we have to be robust, but also expect that people above, the high officials, are going to let us down. They should be held accountable. That's what these investigations are for. But I don't think it's going to stop it in the future, personally.
No, we need to vote for smaller governments, local communities,
Smaller governments.
and build our businesses around trying to build community is what I think deep down what I think is better. I mean, if you imagine living back in the 50s and, after the war, and the reset is really where we're going to go into by the end of our lives and our careers. If we've done what we need to do to get through this fourth turning and to basically reset the clock, and whether it is with a new currency, with a new, we've been brainwashed through the early 70s through to now to think this is normal, and we're so far past normal of what humanity and what life's about. The disruption that is going to be coming, and I think between now and 2028 is where it's all going to kick off. So stay tuned.
Revolution, mate. Revolution's coming.
To make it more fun on a light-hearted note from banking before we close this out, because we've been talking a little while on this. Whenever my banks call me now, they always go, I want to take you through security. And I actually do a security before they take me through security, because then they have my information. Because I don't know where they're calling from. And I almost got caught out on that by someone actually calling me to fraudulently use my card and ask for details. Pretends to be the bank, so make sure you do this. But anyway, bank called me in. Hi, I'm Jeff from Metro Bank. Can I take you through some security? And I said, before you do that, let me take you through security, because as soon as I've gone through security, you've got all my details. And he went, well, to do that, I'm going to have to take you through security. I went, well, this phone call's going to end then. And he sort of laughed,
good.
and he eventually said, what do you want to ask? And I said, tell me one thing that someone random won't know about me and my bank account. And he said, well, we've been in contacted with your business development manager today. You want a new card sent to your address. I went, cool, let's crack on. And that was it. Simple as.
Smart.
But they do catch you out. But I thought that was funny.
It's quite funny. Yeah.
Reverse it on them. But yeah, anyway, that's smaller governments, revolutions come in. Fuck the government, fuck the man. But let's get on to questions. So, Ryan Taylor again. We've got a this is a good one. So you mentioned on a previous pod about having a long list of business ideas. I have the same in my notes. How do you stop yourself getting shiny penny syndrome and wanting to start a new venture, which will inevitably take your focus away from your bread and butter? It's a constant battle for me. Well, Ryan Taylor, I can confirm it's a constant battle for any entrepreneur, most probably, who's got ideas and wants to act on those ideas. So what's our thoughts? We'll start with you, Jack. Go on.
Obviously, I struggle with sitting still and not getting that thought about what if we could do this, what if we could do that. And I've set up multiple businesses in multiple sectors, and I've kind of narrowed down that a lot of people would say inch wide, mile deep. So get your niche, find exactly what you do, specialize in that area, and keep sort of the grass is greenest where you mow it, and water it. Is a phrase that I like to use. And that is kind of true. Like, you can get distracted with different areas, but if you're a hardworking, resilient, smart, open-minded individual, that the way you work, your whatever sector it may be, and you will be successful. And I'm a strong believer of that. And unfortunately, there's more downsides to business than upsides. But if you ride through the downsides and build that critical mass and compounding value, you will get there. So as far as getting distracted and setting up multiple businesses, you can probably see on the sign behind me, we actually run 5 companies. But the benefit of all of our companies, they all fold into each other. So they all use each other, work with each other. They're all clients. They're all revenue generating off each other. And to give you an example, XP Surveys was a simple business to set up because our surveyor that we employed in year 1 cost less than the amount of money we were spending in all the other businesses to use surveying companies. So it was a no-brainer to set up a surveying business. Yet granted, you've got to scale it up and take it to where it needs to be beyond that. So one, make sure it folds into other entities. And then all I would then say additional to that is you've got to fail fast, to fail quickly, and fail cost effectively is a really key way to make sure you de-risk a business. If you're chucking tons of money, tons of time, and tons of risk into a venture that then doesn't end up working, you're going to end up falling into the trap of sort of backpedaling and not being that really successful entrepreneurs. When you look at Elon Musk with Tesla, SpaceX, X, Twitter, he probably did a little test run on those that was very cost effective and efficient for him to internally stress that business before he went big and went hard on that. And Daniel Priestley is a massive advocate for this. So for an example, let's say you want to run a training course. Before you invest all the time and energy and effort to building out that training course, you put out a free poll where you just say, if I did training on this, would you be interested? Join the waiting list. Then he gets all these thousands of people to join the waiting list and he goes, fuck me, there's demand. Create the training platform, sell it into the demand, and you've already de-risked that. So low cost, fail quick strategies are really key. And then last but not least, what I would say is make sure that once you've got something that folds into your existing ecosystem or empire, it complements your other businesses, and you've put it through a rigorous sort of fail fast, cheap, effective way that fits in with its business plan, is then make sure that fits in with your personal 5, 10, 15-year goals, however you want to set it. They're my 3 words of advice. I've got, just to give you an example, because I think it was me that mentioned I've got a whole list of ideas that I wanted to do. One of my early ideas was like a bread, like a fresh bread cutter. You know how you want to buy fresh bread, but it doesn't cut as well as sliced bread, so it was a cutter that would have that. I've thought of a radio station app that I want to build, a recruitment platform that I want to build, and I've literally got tons of these ideas, and they're all sat there. They're all completely irrelevant. They don't fold into my existing business. They'd be too costly to get off the ground. And last but not least, they don't really fit in with my 5, 10, 15-year business plan. They're just a good idea. That's it. That, you know, and sometimes ideas have to stay just a good idea and not a business. Sometimes when people say to me, "Oh, I want to do this," and I'm thinking, "Fucking hell, that sounds like a lot of work." Now I've been through the process of doing that multiple times, and you know, naivety is sometimes your best friend. But hopefully that answers it from my perspective.
I think on the basis of Jack's bread cutting idea is he's missing two things, which is the passion for it and the drive as well. If they were there and he was a real big bread enthusiast, you know,
Baker.
he would probably a big baker. Then he'd want to move that forward. But for
You
me,
don't eat carbs, or do you, Jack? Athlete.
no, he's a meat only diet, and yeah, you're carnivore diet.
Yeah, I hunt my bread before I eat it.
But yeah, no, for me, the shiny penny syndrome is a killer. When you actually tap into the entrepreneurial spirit inside yourself, you just see opportunity in everything. You know, like Jack's saying, you know, cutting bread or anything you use, you sort of go, well, how can I monetize that? And I think by staying focused to your journey, your career is really important. You know, the best entrepreneurs that I know and have been around are the most efficient people. They're almost, to a degree, lazy because they don't want a hard life. They want to create profit, which is sanity. You know, cash flow and trying to run the world is vanity, in my opinion. You know, cash flow means nothing unless you're making physical profit, and it's how you re-spend that. You don't spend profit.
I would disagree with that, Stu,
Yeah,
but I'll
okay,
come
fair
on to
enough.
that.
But for me, I've tried to grow bigger businesses and try to look big and feel big and feel like I'm making it by having a bigger cash flow pot. But if the margin's not there and the profits aren't there, it's just a worthless waste of time and energy. And then it's just efficiencies, really. Staying local, to me, my key things was, do I want to have a load of HMOs and do I want to do this as a sideline hustle, or do I want to start buying blocks? And now, because we're doing blocks and we're starting to master the basics and the foundations of doing these things, that, you know, it's like anything, you do it once, twice, three times, it becomes less and less scary and risky. And then you start looking at, right, what's the best tenant and what's the best tenant type for what type of buildings that's going to allow me to work local. One thing I don't want to do is drive 4 or 5 hours across the country to South Wales or the Midlands and do a different strategy, which may be more profitable in the long term. It's just not worth my time and energy. So, you know,
There's no profit down here, mate. Don't
there's
worry.
no profit in Wales. Well, I mean, yeah, ultimately, I just didn't see that my benefit of life but my lifestyle would benefit from doing that and spending that many hours in it. So I had to build a strategy. It was local. So you just take all the things you want that's going to give you the best balance of life, give you the drive and the passion and the efficiencies to build your business. And you just, as you take them steps, you make small tweaks along the way. Now we're looking at trying to secure commercial tenants on the ground floor because I've understood the power of a commercial tenant. Now we're trying to look at what we can do on the top floor. Now we're talking to Ministry of Defence at the moment about bringing them in on 7-year contracts or 6 years and 11 months, because it's let them forget, it's FRI, and it's take 18 flats in one hit and walk away. And that's, to me, like, wow, do I want to do that and take a small hit, even though they're almost market rents when you take out letting fees? But until you walk these steps, this wasn't a problem for me a year and a half ago. But in 2 months' time, I'm going to have 18 flats that I need to rent, let, manage, pay for, deal with people moving in and out, go on the market, take all this risk? Or do I want to take a slight hit, give the whole thing away and move on with my life and create an income? So yeah, you just take these little steps. But shiny penny, as long as it folds into itself, as Jack likes to say, of his other businesses. And I also try not to increase my service part business and increase my passive part business, because if we can maintain what we're working on and just make little steps to create passive income more faster, efficiently, with less time, then the time I do gain, I can either keep increasing to a point where we're happy, or I can spend more time with my family. And hopefully you'll see me on a yacht in Cannes very soon, where you're all welcome to come and party and have a barbecue and fish off the back of it, because that's where I want to spend my time.
Hit golf balls
You
off
can hit
the
the
back
golf
of the
balls
yacht.
off it, mate. It might be a dinghy and we might fall in the water, but it might be a nice yacht with a
nice.
fly bridge. We'll see.
That's great.
Depend on how many efficiencies we make. That's all it's about.
What about you, Dorian? 'Cause I know you spoke before about your mind going crazy.
Yeah, I agree with everything Jack and Stuart said. The only thing I disagree slightly with Stuart, but I'm going to throw more of an extreme example out there, is on the cash flow and profit thing. Cash flow is incredibly important. So is being very profitable. But there are businesses out there that basically the growth cost makes it not profitable, but they're cash flow positive. It was a big part of Amazon. It was cash flow positive, but it was never profitable. And there's a lot of tech companies are like that as well. So like we're looking at a tech business at the moment when the modeling will show that it's not going to be profitable for like 5 years at least, but it's going to be cash flow positive because you'll charge up front and that will go over 12-month period, so it'll be recorded monthly, but your cash flow comes in day one. So it's just that was the only thing that I was picking up on there. But from traditional based businesses, if your profit is good, your cash flow well, I'm not going to get complicated, but profit is really important. It should mean better cash flow, just depends on your debtor days then and things like that. So but to answer the question, shiny penny syndrome, if you are any bit entrepreneurial, you will have it, and you will probably always have it. That's basically what Jack and Stuart was also saying. It never goes away. You have to learn to control it. It's not gone away from me. In the early years of my businesses, I wanted to do everything. I've had businesses in lots of different things, from importing from China, selling things online, letting agency, estate agency, mortgage brokerage. I just wanted to do everything pretty much because of shiny penny syndrome. And I think shiny penny syndrome comes from two things. One is that you are genuinely entrepreneurial and see opportunity in everything, like Stuart says. And the other point is because it comes from that comparison factor. Social media and watching what other people are showing in terms of their good news drives shiny penny syndrome as well. You see strategies pop up left, right, and center. I mean, Jack was talking about one the other day, actually, that on the face of it, very high level, it looks like, it could make great money, it could be fast. It does. You've got all the skill sets for it. Why not just do that? But what I've come to do to try to control my shiny penny syndrome, because I'm a lot more focused and rigid nowadays, is my tips to anyone listening is write them down. I have an ideas list as well, just like Jack and Stuart, no doubt, and probably you too, right? Whatever ideas you have, there is nothing wrong how random they are, just to write them down. And just don't act on them. Write them down, and give yourself time, because when you come up with an idea, you put yourself into an emotional state, i.e. a very excited state. You should not make decisions in that state of mind. You should make decisions in a very calm mind, where you're looking at the pros and cons, and you can only do that when a bit of time has passed. And trust me, there's not going to be any idea out there that you don't need to act on today. You can wait a week or 2 or 3 or even a month. But I would suggest write the idea down and revisit it in a month, and then you'll probably lose, like I said, the passion or interest in it. So that's the first thing I would do. If you are choosing to go down a new opportunity because you think you could, all about trying to understand these guys have already said it, so I'm just repeating the same things, but does it align with what you're trying to do? Why you really want to do it? Is it cash flow? Is it another strain in the actual real business, the business you're in now, that's driving you to do a new opportunity because something's not working in your current business? And should you try to figure out how you can fix that instead? And then the same principles apply. If you do go down a new route, chasing that shiny penny, still adopt the same principles that good business dictates, i.e. the lean startup approach. Do your minimum viable product, test the market, forward sell before you actually have to deliver anything or spend time in creating things. There's lots of people who get an idea, they'll go then and invest thousands of pounds setting up a website, doing all the branding, doing this, that, all the stuff other than actually getting a sale and proving that the business works. So those are my key points, really.
Yeah, nice. I mean, I would just to add to this, coming at a slightly different angle. I think when you're starting out in business, especially when you're younger, you have these entrepreneurial tendencies, and that can, I think entrepreneurs can be two different styles. One is dreamers and the other one is visionaries. And the difference being, a dreamer talks the talk, has these ideas, gets really excited, tells everyone what they're going to do. They're fucking mental, and then never actually gets anything done because they don't have the vision to implement and use critical thinking to go, okay, I have this idea. This is where I want to be. What are the first incremental steps? What's the minimum viable product? How can I test this thing? How can I get it to a point where it's sustainable and then grow the thing? And I think there is a big difference. And it's ideally, when you start, you're entrepreneur, you try different business models. Once you find something, narrow in on a niche, you can then become intrapreneurial, where within that business you innovate and come up with ideas that directly complement that business and that domain, which is what Jack's touching on there, with folding in other complementary businesses. And that's exactly what we've done, extending the lifetime value of our clients from the point of sale, because you can innovate within the same business and still exercise that entrepreneurial muscle, if you can just focus on trying not to go and, like we're doing HMOs. If we suddenly went, fuck it, I want to go do a load of new builds, then that could really distract our systems and our processes. And yeah, it's still property and construction, but the model's completely different, and it can distract you, and you can end up losing a lot of money just in the time lost. Anyway, hopefully helpful. What's the next question?
I've actually got a fun story about that one as well.
Go on.
A guy who, so when I was at uni, I was classic club promoter, and like the kingpin, the pimp, the year 3 student that was like running all the little minions, that was me as a club promoter, was quite an entrepreneurial guy. He bought a house in his duration of uni, and he ran loads of club nights, and he was very entrepreneurial. We ran a festival and bits and bobs. But I used to meet up with him from time to time after uni, because we both cottoned on that we're both entrepreneurial, and he sort of gravitates towards those types of people. Anyway, I told him one of my ideas, and about 6 months later, he launched it and set up a business, completely fucking ignored that there was any loyalty or any ideas there. And like initially, I was like, "You fucker!" Like without even speaking to me, engaging me, bringing me in on it. And at the end of the day, it's in like health, fitness, and nutrition. So it's something that I'm super passionate about, and I do have tons more ideas in that space. But I had to think to myself, would I have actually said yes and wanted to do it? No, it would have probably distracted me from my properties to let him crack on. He's actually made a good business off it. Like it's probably turning over £1 million.
Nice.
Of just basically a supplemental idea that he's gone in and implemented. There was a lot of graft. I saw he went into it, and he's made a go of it. But you do also get that as well. So maybe, as Dorian said, if you write it down, don't tell anyone that's likely to be able to deliver it. Tell your gran. But don't tell another entrepreneurial person.
Just quickly on Dorian's point, right? Just before we move on, when you said about resonating with an idea and sitting on it, and obviously you act on an emotional state of excitement. I think I make all my decisions in that state, because that's where I'm the most passionate. I want to move. But on the negative stuff or things that happen, I will take my time and think about a little bit more. And that's what I've had, because I used to make actions on my emotional state in the bad times, which was a wrong thing to do. So I move on exciting things. Let's try, which my staff absolutely detest and hate, because one minute we're going here, then here, then here, but we make these little tweaks, and then we go, yeah, that doesn't work. Let's bin that off. So we make these little tweaks, and we take the good stuff in a positive frame of mind.
Fail fast.
But in the negative stuff, I'm definitely fail fast. Exactly. Yeah, little tweaks. Try it. Dip your toe in, and then jump in.
Yeah.
Which is a great point.
Yeah, no, they're absolutely good for just that door analogy again from Jeff Bezos. Is if you make decisions where they kind of, you can fail fast and just move on from it. It's not going to break the bank. Then you absolutely what you said. You can make decisions. Like I'll read a book, find an idea in a book. I'll get excited about it, and I'll just email my management team straight away and say, "This is what we're doing." So I'm just like that as well. But if it doesn't work, it's nothing really at the end of the day. If it does work, great. But on those big decisions, like,
or if 1% of it works,
exactly.
If 1% of something you've done works, then that's 1% better off you would have been by just sitting on it and going, "Oh, actually, I can't."
But then making a decision like, I'm going to go now and I'm going to go set up a modular factory. Now that I can't make that decision instantly, that's a lot of weighing up there. Yeah.
But what you could do though, is using critical thinking, is you want to go modular. Well, maybe there's a component of modular you could start introducing at a more palatable level now, that you could then test out. If that works, then you could increase whatever it is. Let's say it's a wall panel that you deal with continuously, and you work on that, and then you might then implement it further if it works. If it doesn't work, you kill it off. And there are ways to implement things if you've got that visionary approach.
Partnerships.
Or partnerships.
You partner with people. You build your empire by partnerships, and that's how the
Exactly.
big boys do it. But and then rebates.
Agreed.
And
Partnerships.
All right, next question, guys, and we'll make this is a little fun, quick one. So quick answers. And this is from Sophia Miranda. Thank you for your question. What is the one thing you haven't done yet that you really want to? And I think this should just be anything, starting with Jack.
Come back to me, hang on. I haven't got anything for that yet.
I've got one.
Go on.
I really want to, and I think it's one of those things where you buy a car, you enjoy it for a month, and it just becomes another four wheels. But I really want to get off my chest. Hopefully, before I'm 50, is I want to sail the Med. So whether I want to charter a yacht or buy a yacht and then sell it on, but I really want to park up in these marinas, enjoy that type of lifestyle, eat some food off the back of it, and then when I'm ready, we'll palm off into the sunset and go and put up into another port, because I love cruising. I never cruised until I was like 30, and my wife bought me a trip around Iceland, and we went from Southampton, and it was the most amazing 14 days to see small little segments of the world and to get around such a big geographical area, and to wake up with a new view every day. And just the whole cruising experience, I was always thinking it was for 50, 60-year-olds. I've done like 8 cruises now around the Caribbean and Norway, and I love it on a big scale. And I think it'd be even more it's precious to do it on these sort of eight person yacht. And I think that'd just be something I just want to tick off. And if it costs me a few $100,000, and I have to, hopefully my Bitcoin will pay for this in the future, or I borrow against it to pay for it. But yeah, that's something I want to tick off, which is a big drive for me, just to say I've done it.
Nice. Dorian?
Nice. Yeah, I'm with Stuart. I think cruising's great, but I think, to be honest with you, I don't want a small yacht. What I would like to do actually is just carry on cruising and just be paying for having like the penthouses instead, because in some of those waters on a small boat, I don't like to feel the ups and downs of the water. I like the cruise and everything it has, but I don't like the smaller the boat, the more you'll feel the water. The bigger the boat, the less you'll feel it. So
they've got these gyros now, Dorian. So they sort of spin in the center. I can't remember what they're called. I think they're called
do
a
they?
sea.
Oh, right, okay.
Basically, it does the exact opposite, so it can stabilize these smaller yachts. Yeah, I'm on about 60 foot. I'm not thinking about a little dinghy, but
Oh, right, okay.
yeah, like, it's got to be a decent
Is that
size. Owner occupier.
Is that Stu out there? Is that Stuart?
It's a drive. It might never happen, but it's a passion. So aim for it.
Yeah. Good. What was the question again, Ryan? Sorry.
What's one thing you haven't done yet that you really want to do?
I'm kind of like with Jack on this as well. But my problem is, because my mental state is so focused in a way that there is nothing I want to do at the moment other than what I'm already doing.
Mhm.
And I know that sounds stupid, and I've got to unlock that part of my brain that there's lots of things I want to do in life, clearly, but I've locked them away, type of thing. I've put myself in a hyper focused mode because it's a distraction. I don't want to know about that. I've got my goal already. I know where I'm trying to get to. So
Well, let's distract you then. Go on. What's one thing? What's one
open
thing?
that door, mate.
Distract yourself. Go on.
Yeah, come on, Jeff Bezos, open that door.
Go on, Bezos.
joking. Well, that's going all radical now. Watch. There's things, I think my time's passed, but in my early years, I would have liked to have done something like climb Everest, but now there's nothing really. Sorry, I don't mean to be disrespectful. It's not as meaningful really anymore when you can just pay to go up there. So when I'm rich, I'll probably just pay to get Sherpa'd up there and down. No, I'm joking. Things, anything I wanted to do, I've just done. I wanted to learn to fly, so I started doing that. I wanted to skydive, so I just did that. The one good thing about having a business and is that if you want to do something, you can. I said one thing I want to do that I haven't done yet. Then right, so this here's one thing. My kids at the moment are 6 and 4. I've in my head what I'm working to. What I'd love to do with them when they are 20 and 18 or something around that time. If I can make it work, university and work and all that. What I really want to do is I want to take my kids around the world. When I say around the world, I mean not talking big things. When they're old enough that they can really experience it, enjoy it, I want them to get worldwide, cultural differences before they go off and do their full life type of thing. I think it will really benefit them, and it's not all about business and stuff. They can just find their own passions and strum a guitar on the beach and sing "Kumbaya," whatever. But that's one thing I'd like to do with them.
Yeah, cool. No,
So,
I like that.
14 years
I've
away.
come round back to me. I've got mine now. I've got 2. I was completely put on the spot there, Ryan. I didn't think you'd come to me first. So one thing that I do want to achieve in the fairly near future is like a hybrid life. So we live part in England, part in another country. I just, having married an American and getting asked the question, why do you live here in winter? I don't have an answer. So that's one. And I agree with it. Why the fuck would you want to be in 5 months of wet and cold and dark and depressing when you can jump on a plane? I mean, people do it, to go to Tenerife. Why can't you just jump and go and rent an Airbnb in could be anywhere, somewhere warm, nice, cultural, different, similar time zone, blah blah blah. So yeah, to build a bit of a hybrid life. So we're traveling to areas now where we could potentially live or park up for a little while. And then the second one that is a massive one day and with more time and wealth and infrastructure is I really, really want to run a completely complimentary and free sort of like educational program for kids to to mold and aid and grow their entrepreneurial spirits, because I think it's completely neglected in the UK education. My parents thought there was a problem with me, and they tried everything to get me into a good space of education, and it never really clicked with me. And then I left, and I was like, "Fucking hell, I'm good at solving problems and business, but I'm terrible at school." And I just think there's such a common relation to most people that have had entrepreneurialism from a young age do struggle at school, and I think that there's a massive gap there for inspiring that, and I find that hugely satisfying myself as sort of like some philanthropy giving back. So yeah, some sort of children's university for entrepreneurialism would be up
rate
there.
that. Yeah, that's cool. That's very cool. I would. It's funny you said that, Jack, because the my thing was that I wanted to get a place for me and the missus. Just logistically can't at the moment with the business being up here, and she'll never live up here, so it needs to be in London or figure it out. But we also always talk about the miserable winter months and how I'd love to have a place in Italy or have a place in Spain, or where, not Spain, actually, fuck buying property in Spain. But just somewhere abroad for those miserable months where you could just be like, fuck it, don't want to be here. So gonna fuck off over there, and I can work abroad and just live that nice lifestyle. I mean, I grew up in Spain, and I know that the winters there are, much more pleasant than the winters here. So yeah, I'd
You
say
can tell
that
the
as
ones that
mine.
haven't got kids and the ones that have got kids. I love that idea. But if you're going to put me into a schooling system and just live in the UK, you take the winter months with the summer months, and
Now the nanny can look after them in the winter, mate. Now the nanny.
you're never going to leave your kids.
Yeah, I couldn't think of doing that at all until after they've all gone through the system now,
Yeah.
because they've got friends and it messed with them. It messed with them.
I personally, I mean, it's a conversation with the missus, but I mean, I can't stand the schooling system. The only thing I like about the schooling system is that you've got a lot of your peers there. But I could imagine myself homeschooling kids. It's maybe something that I'd be interested in doing because
Mate, you want them out the house as fast as you can. Don't say
Honestly,
that.
you want the break.
nanny.
Rye's going to be like, right, kids, today, section 1, we're learning about Bitcoin. Section 2, Bitcoin.
blockchain.
Section 3, recording yourself talking about Bitcoin and putting it on YouTube. Section 4, listening to Dad talk about Bitcoin.
And fuck the government. But yeah, I mean, I think if you homeschool kids, then
the little Beaumonts coming out with for society, Ryan. Don't do that.
yeah, I mean, I don't know about the school. The way schools are now, I wouldn't want to put my kids into school. I know I'd just be failing them. Like I could teach them. It's like my little brothers. Like I could teach my little brothers way more in a semester than the school or college ever could, and that's just now. So I know I could bring up my kids and teach them better than the schooling system ever could. The problem is time. The problem is them not having enough social time with their peers. So that's the kind of rock and a hard place. But there are clubs and sports things you could get them involved in that can kind of compensate that. But
Send them to school.
anyway, tangent. Let's get or send them to school. Just fuck it. Yeah. So Dunkstable's back. Dunstable, who remember the plasterer who asked this question before, he said, "Thanks for asking my question last week. All the plastering is done, painted, and now outside digging for the decking. Congrats. In light of general election having been called this week, so this is going back a couple of weeks, he asked this question. What are your thoughts on a likely Labour win, and how will this affect you guys?" What you guys do. Starmer made a point of highlighting the problems of the planning system and the need for its reform in his party conference speech. Do you think his vision is achievable and good for the development space? I'll just start this off quickly by saying I really don't think it matters who the fuck gets in government anymore. They all promise and never deliver. And the planning system is so broken that I can't see any politician fixing it anytime soon. I think it would take a huge lobbying effort from the industry to actually really change things. But anyway, that's my 2 cents. What do you guys think? Starting with Stu.
Yes, mate. I think I think the only thing they can control is effectively the money and where they want to lobby for more money. And obviously they've got quite a weight on social housing. So we've been speaking to our local council this week. We're now speaking to some registered providers, which is obviously a whole strategy I learned from Dorian. And, I love what he's doing over there, but it does work different in Wales to the UK. So yeah, we are opening up doors now to think, right, what do we need to do to try and help with the effectively pots of money that the government are going to be handing out to help their policies. So yeah, we're just going with the flow. If we're buying buildings, renting them to private rental, or whether we're going to go to more social housing led. These RPs have got grants from Home England, and Home England obviously get grants from the government, and the government lobby to the Bank of England. It's all interconnected. So follow the money is what I'm doing, and we'll just see what happens.
I think that's a good strategy, Stu. Yeah, I definitely think in most things, if there's always a business to be had if you follow the government money, basically. So and because we're talking big numbers all the time, and they do. So yeah, I in terms of obviously we've got Labour in Wales, and whilst it is devolved, the planning system in Wales is just as bad, if not probably worse, than it is in England. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen, or if it'll even make anything better where I'm based. We're trying to get into England as well, but I was in the Senate yesterday, and I gave suggestions of how to improve the planning system with just some low hanging fruit of things that we would see as an SME developer of what should be changed. Hopefully, they make some moves off the back of that. But ultimately, to answer the question, because I'm aware of obviously the time second and Jack's got to shoot off shortly. What was the actual point of the question? Sorry, what was my opinion on what?
On Starmer's, there's kind of two questions there, but if Labour do get in, Starmer's promised to change the planning system.
Are you changing your business to suit government?
So the first answer is they'll have to do something because they've said they will. But the problem with their new town policy, a lot of their policies, and this is my feedback to Welsh government as well, is a lot of the policies at the moment are coming out for large scale infrastructure development stuff. There's nothing really about SMEs, supporting SMEs, and that's what I was basically drilling the point home is don't forget about the SMEs because they are bringing through new skills. Nearly all businesses with the skill shortage start off as SMEs. So if you preclude SMEs from developing, you're going to have that skills shortage as even a bigger problem in the future. And that's a problem in Wales is too. One area they've not allocated any sites under 100 units. SMEs can't play then in the new build space in those areas. My fear for England is that will happen too. Is that these new towns will come in, but they're massive. They're huge. SMEs can't get a look in for that. So as long as they don't forget about SMEs, they definitely have to make some changes because they've promised to do so. If they don't, it'll be terrible. But I don't think they'll be as revolutionary as anyone's getting their hopes up to do. So I still think budget for a long time in planning and build a pipeline. Those are really your only two ways to absorb it. And how are we changing our business? By doing that, basically building a bigger pipeline and budgeting more time towards it. And we're still very much focused on the forward sold, forward funded business model, and also doing what Stuart's doing, looking where the government's directing their money targets and targeting our business off the back of that.
Nice, Jack.
I think to a certain degree, I speak to investors all the time, and some investors just don't do. They say, "Oh, Brexit, oh, war, oh, COVID," and then 5 years down the line, there's another problem that prevents them doing what they want to do. So I'm a massive believer that there's a strategy and there's sub strategies. So what Stuart's referred to as social housing or supported living or working with a council, I see that as a sub strategy. Your strategy and your business model has to be irrelevant to anything going around from government. And what I mean by that is a crest of a wave of something that's changing in the next year or two might not be a sustainable business model. For me, to build a profitable, scalable, small to medium enterprise that's worth owning, it will take between 5 to 10 years to get that going and make that scalable, profitable, and worth running. So how can you build a strategy, a main core strategy around a business plan on government changes? You can't. You can work on adapting that, tweaking that, de-risking that, sort of protecting that. But essentially the main strategy has to be focused around what you want to do, where your passion is, what effort you put in, everything we discuss on this podcast. So for me, I can't see a huge change. We're not here to ride a crest of a wave. We're here to protect a potential wave for sure. But we're more about protection, continue doing the same, putting certain tweaks within our business. We obviously have a social housing portfolio, like Stuart mentioned, where that's probably more Labour government led than what we've been doing previously. Maybe exploring that a bit more, but the core fundamentals of our development company will not change drastically while we trade into this period, see what they do, feel what they do. I'm not one to try and be an early mover. Dorian talked about it before. The first mover is the costly one that makes them cock up, and then someone else takes all their frameworks and mistakes and does it better. So we're not, really anyone's to be an early mover. Any business that we own is something that someone's already done but better. And I think that's a great metric to build a scalable and profitable SME business. And you can also have innovation within those businesses. For an example, in XB Surveys, we're not the first surveying business in the UK. We're probably one of 10,000, but we are the only surveying business in the UK that has an automated quotation tool. So adding tweaks of USPs is more important than being the unique, in my opinion.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, personally, I just think if you're operating in the free market and rely more on free market dynamics away from government money, then generally you should have more stability, so long as your business model's good. But yeah, interesting. No one really knows what's going to happen in this election. Will government or politicians ever deliver on what they promise? It's hard to know. There's certainly going to be something that happens for the planning system. It's just so apparent now how much it's holding back the housing supply. But it's going to be an interesting year. I think it's a really interesting year to see what happens. But anyway, Jack, should we get on to the quiz, or we not got time?
I've got to go, mate. I've got a call with Malta.
No, we'll do it on the next podcast. Quiz is coming in in episode 8, so stay tuned.
Episode 1804.
Anyway, anyone listening, thank you for listening to this podcast. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Subscribing obviously helps us massively. We are almost, or just over now, halfway through our 12 episodes planned for this first series. And if you've got any questions to ask for the next episode, then drop them in the comments. And we will try and answer them as we have done here. We release these episodes every Thursday at 5:30 a.m. Do us a favor and share the podcast with any friends or any people you think who may benefit from hearing about people talk about business and the property sector. We'd massively appreciate it. So thank you. And check out our social medias in the video description. Big love. Hope you all have a successful week and weekend. Safe one. Peace out. Da da da. Da da da.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Ground up sound. Ooh, yeah. Real estate deal. We lay